Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to show 250, chapter 10. We're moving right along with this personal testimony of mine. May I say the truth, and so help me God, nothing but the truth. Ladies and gents, as you may have recall in chapter 9, I was on the bus with this homeless man. I was taking him to spend Christmas with my family in Miami, who I hadn't seen in a couple of years, and They graciously sent me money to bring a friend. So when we arrived to Miami, I had a dream. Remember the dream where my soul was full of peace and love for others. And I just started talking about God. I was just uncontrollably, and I no longer needed drugs. It delivered me from drugs, from the need of LSD or heroin or anything. I was full to the brim. I was overflowing upon others. As a matter of fact, right before we arrived to Miami, I got up on the bus and said the Our Father out loud for all the passengers. Some of them got very annoyed because there was some Jewish people, older Jewish people, ladies and gents, and a lot of them started protesting. But I finished the prayer and sat down. When we arrived to Miami, my older brother, he was a taxi driver, and he went to pick us up at the Greyhound station in downtown Miami. When he saw that old alcoholic homeless man, oh man, he almost fell over backwards because he thought it was a young guy, like me. I was like 20, 21 or something. He imagine there was a young guy, cool young guy, another hippie. But when he saw that old, downtrodden homeless guy, man, he almost fell over backward. But, he put us in the car. We arrived to my mom's house where my mom and my sister lived. And they were also very uncomfortable with the presence of this older guy. And it was like a week away from Christmas, I believe. And then, the first few days, they were mean to him, so to speak, not very welcoming. They were not very happy with the situation. But then later, the old man was so humble. He was so humble and unpretentious, and he was just a humble man, extremely so. He would once in a while go take a walk to smoke a cigarette. He had a thing that he was a heart patient. He had like a card saying that he was a heart patient. Then after a few days went by, I guess they kind of felt sorry for him. My mom, gave him a bath or something. They gave him some clothing, and they already had it in their minds that the old guy, Clyde was his name, was going to spend Christmas with us. Clyde felt very uncomfortable himself. He felt out of place. He felt like he was imposing. That's how humble he was. But I insisted, no, you stay. You're staying till Christmas. You're going to spend Christmas with us, Clyde, old man Clyde. But one day, old man Clyde, a few days before Christmas Eve, he went out for a smoke and never came back. Like an angel of God, maybe that's what he was, to test us, to test me, to test my family. I suspect maybe he was an angel of God. But he was gone. Anyway, then after Christmas, I had made a lot of promises to my mom that I was no longer taking drugs, that I was no longer in the gang of the Victorians, that I was no longer hanging out with drugsters and selling drugs, and that I was changing my life with Jesus, with God, and that I was going to get a job and become a normal person, quote unquote normal. So I did get a job, and they didn't want to hire me at this job, but they said young guys like you come and go, and we need stable people. I swore up and down to that owner of the job place, the factory, that my life had changed and I was a decent guy, and I was going to stick around and show some stability and become a normal member of society as we know it. And that happened. So, but I was like they say when when you first have a spiritual experience, you're like full of fire. You know, I was on fire, man. I was like, talking to everybody about God. I think that might have created a problem at the job. I don't know. But then I recall, I felt I needed to belong to a group, or else I felt I was going to backslide and go back to my old ways and my old friends, and I needed a support group. So I started investigating all these different evangelical groups, and I don't know, they seemed kind of boring, or they didn't seem to have much fire, or they seemed kind of traditional, and oh yeah, Wednesday we have our young people's meetings and stuff like that. They were like, to me it was a revolution. I was on a revolution to change the world. I mean, these guys, they were just, I don't know, they were trying to put down my fire, and these different evangelical groups I would visit or call, they didn't seem to have much fire or motivation. They were just very theological, into theology and Bible studying and sitting down and calming down. Calm down now, just calm down, young man. And just, I don't know, just to fit into these Christian groups, and I just couldn't feel it. But then one good day I remembered that I had in my wallet a Christian tract, literature in my wallet that I had saved for a couple of years. That once in Texas, back in Texas, I met this Christian commune, and they were so nice. They were different than the other Christians. They weren't condemning. I told them that I smoked pot, marijuana, and they were not self-righteous. They were very sweet about it. As a matter of fact, they said, well, one of them said, I smoked pot after I received Jesus, and I kept smoking weed, but then little by little the desire went away and I stopped smoking. But they were not condemning or nothing. They were very sweet, and they lived like in a commune. And they're like hippies. They seemed like hippies. They were a different kind of Christians. They were like hippies. They played guitar and stuff. So I remember I had it in my wallet, and then they had a phone number from Texas, and I was in Miami, So I called them, and they still lived in that. It was a few years later. I carried that piece of literature for good luck, and I called them, and man, I talked for like an hour on the phone with them, and they were so nice. And then they finally said that they had a home, one of their communes, in Miami, and they gave me the number to that commune in Miami. So I ended up visiting them, and wow, they were on fire. They were young, like hippies, and there were girls, beautiful young ladies and men, and they played guitar and they danced like gypsies, and they even drank a little wine, and they seemed to be sexually liberated. Like the girls wouldn't wear brassiers, and they seemed to preach about that sex was a gift of God, a good thing, a spiritual thing. They were very sexy, and they believed like sex was not a sin. I mean, they weren't having orgies. There's no orgies and stuff, but they just talked very nice about sex and that it was a good thing, and they were like hippies, and they wanted to change the world, and they were on a roll, man, to change the world and go into all the world and share love, And they were like really nice. It was exciting. It was exciting. So after visiting them for 2 weeks, they said, well, why don't you just join, drop out. Drop out of the system and join. And serve God full time and go into all the world with us and singing and going to prisons and singing to the prisoners and changing the world and living together in harmony and community. And there was all these beautiful young girls, So man, I said, all right. And my mom, she had a fit. She said, I knew you hadn't changed. There you go again with some more drug addicts. I said, Mom, they're not drug addicts. They're like, I want to serve the Lord. I want to go into all the world. And at the job, they weren't very happy. My mom wasn't very happy. They were like, here he goes again. This guy, there's no solution to this guy, He's a gypsy at heart. I mean, I dropped out of the system, I dropped out of the job, and I joined this evangelical Christians, but they were young and they were on fire and they were different. And they were cool, man. They were non-condemning and they were into sharing love and they were sexually liberal. They were liberal. I mean, I didn't have any sex, well, not then, but it was beautiful, so I joined the group. Next chapter is coming soon. What happens to the hippie pastor in this group that he joins? Stay tuned. I love you.